Dear student, welcome to our session 8, Identification of Research Problem. Identification of Research Problem. Uh, this is the fact that research starts from some problem. The research journey starts from identification of the problem. To work on that specific problem, only the identification is not sufficient. It is necessary for the researcher to define that problem in more practical terms. When we say in more practical terms, what does it mean? In a research process or in a flow chart of a research, you must have to start with an idea. And that idea which you have, it must have been developed from a problem that you have seen. That's why you say the research journey started from identification of the problem. Where did that problem come from? You must have gotten the idea, or you have seen something happening. Then idea came into your mind. That's a problem. So in a research process, flowchart, we define research problem. That is our first stage. But we say it is not necessary for a researcher to define that problem in more. It is necessary for the researcher to define that problem in more practical terms. Here in more practical terms, uwezi ukaliona tu tatizo ukasema ili ni tatizo fulani, alafu ukaconclude kwamba okay, ili ndo tatizo. No, lazima uwe na concrete reason. Why do you think that is a problem? Why do you think that is a problem? So literature review helps the researcher in defining the research problem so that it can be measured in its true sense. Then you have seen the problem. Then you go through documents. You may read books, journals, or review other researchers' research in which they have done concerning that problem or something which resemble that problem. And that is what we call what? Research or literature review. Literature review is our second step in research process or research process in flowchart. It's literature review. What does a literature review comprise? You may review concepts and theories or review previous research finding. Kwamba research zilizopita ziliona tatizo gani? What was the problem to the previous research? Or other theories, what do they say about the problem? So that is why from defining a research problem, for your research problem to be concrete, you have to review, to go to literature review, which you might review concept and theories or review previous research finding. And literature review help the researcher in defining the research problem so that it can be measured in its true sense. I hope we understand this. In this problem, or in any research problem, there is what we call variables. Variables. When we say variables, a variable is a characteristics that takes on different values or condition for different individuals. Variables of different types. We have dependent variable. These are variable that we measure to determine if the independent variable has an effect, such as a science achievement. The dependent variable is what is affected by independent variable. We say dependent variable is what is affected by independent variable. Then we have independent variables. These are often simply or are classifying variables. Classifying the individual of the research start. For example, if you are looking at the student achievement in science using some new teaching methods, then the teaching method will be an independent variable, and the achievement of the student is dependent variable. Are we getting? When we say the teaching method would be an independent variable, and then achievement of the student is dependent variable. Maana yake nini? Tukisema kwamba teaching method ni variable huru, and the achievement of the student ni variable tegemezi. Kwa hiyo kufaulu kwao kutategemea na method ya ufundishaji. Sawa. Kwa hiyo method ya ufundishaji ni variable huru au independent variable, na kufaulu kwa wanafunzi, achievement au student achievement, ni variable tegemezi. Then let's see, another type is controlled variable. Controlled variable are independent variables. They are controlled variables only if their effects are determined. That to say, controlled. In the example of science achievement, the learning style of the student is an organismic variable. Learning style of the student is an organismic variable, as it will be probably appear as an intervening variable. For example, a treatment of program or cause. This is what we call controlled variable. Which means when you, for example, you teach, maybe you umetumia the right method kumfundisha mwanafunzi, si ndio? Lakini ili aweze kufaulu, lazima uhakikishe kwamba pamoja na kufundishwa na hiyo method, huyu mwanafunzi lazima asome. Sisi tumeelewana? Lazima uhakikishe huyu mwanafunzi alitumia muda wake vizuri. You know? So ni variable huru, lakini controlled. We have a extraneous variable which is related to dependent or independent variable but is not part of the experiment. Extraneous variable is related to dependent or independent variable but is not part of the experiment. Moderator variable is related to independent and dependent variable and is an impact on dependent variable. Moderator variable is related to independent and dependent variable and has an impact on dependent variable. In such a situation, it becomes an interacting variable also. We also have what we call thesis or hypothesis. How do we construct the hypothesis? And what is an hypothesis? Tunaenda kuona hypothesis ni nini na ni jinsi gani tunaweza tukaformulate au tukaconstruct hypothesis. Hypothesis is a specific statement of prediction, which is also called an academic guess. A hypothesis is a specific statement of prediction, which is also called an academic guess. It describes in concrete rather than theoretical terms what we expect will happen in the research. Not all studies have hypotheses. Sometimes research is designed to be exploratory. In such a case, there is no formal hypothesis. A single study may have one or many hypotheses. And these types of hypotheses, we have null hypothesis. Null hypothesis is a hypothesis in which there is no relationship between two or more variables. Null hypothesis is a hypothesis in which there is no relationship between two or more variables. It is symbolized as H0. Research hypothesis or The alternate hypothesis proposes a relationship between two or more variables and symbolized as H1. We know if the variable have no relation at all variables are independent and they don't have what relation at all, it is symbolized as H0 and it's null hypothesis. In research hypothesis or the alternate hypothesis, it proposes a relationship between two or more variables and is symbolized as H1. We also have directional hypothesis. You assume that by manipulating the independent variable, the dependent variable will change in a specific direction. You can predict if this change will be positive or negative. This we call directional hypothesis. For example, the decrease of A may cause the increase of what? Of B. Or the increase of variable A may cause also the increase of variable B. That is directional. Non-directional research hypothesis is two-tailed. You assume that by manipulating the independent variable, there will be a change in the dependent variable. You cannot predict if the change will be positive or negative. But in this directional, you predict if this change will be positive. You can predict if the change is positive or negative. I think we're there for non-directive and directive thesis. Then we say we are going to look at what hypothesis is after seeing the types and how the variable in these types or form of thesis in which how the variables relate. Kwa tukiangalia mfumo mzima wa kwenda predict or to write down the thesis, inakulazimu kitu cha kwanza kuangalia relation ya variables. You predict the relation of the variables in which you have seen. It's all about the relationship of variables. We are going to see how we construct the thesis. Now you see from there. Let's see writing a statement of research problem. Writing a statement of research problem, a good research statement makes clear to the reader what issue the research is dealing with. What issue the research is dealing with. And when we go to research process flowchart, we said the first thing we define research problem. Into the research problem, we go to review of the literature or literature review. Now we said in this literature review, it is step 2. Now after literature review, you go to your academic case, you formulate the hypothesis, which will give you a ladder to go to research design. So let's see the writing of statement of research, then we're gonna see where are we going to construct this thesis, or where does it come from, what are the variables, relationship do we get from whatever start we design. So writing a statement of research problem, a good research statement makes clear to the reader what issue the research is dealing with. Ideally, a research statement should be presented in one sentence. A research problem statement is to the point, focused, and measurable. It is not ambiguous and abstract. For example, inamaanisha when you write a statement of research problem, if someone read a statement of research problem, you get the concept of your study, of your research study. Ni kipi hasa unataka ukifanye, anapata ile idea nzima ya research yako. So let's see the formulation of the problem statement. First, describe the nature of the problem. First, we have to describe the nature of the problem. What is discrepancy between what is and what you prefer the situation to be? What is discrepancy between what is and what you prefer the situation to be? For example, you have seen the current situation as a problem, but how do you wish it to be? There is a way that you wish it to be. That's why you have seen this current situation is not perfect, it's a problem. And you extracted a statement of problem from there. So you say, what is the discrepancy between what is and what you prefer the situation to be? Then magnitude and size of data needed. Then distribution. Who is affected, where and when, to which extent. Now we go to which extent, then we come to severity, intensity and consequences. Nafikiri tunaipata point hapa. Formulation of the problem statement. Let's see preparation of the statement of the problem. State the possible contributing factors and how they might lead to the problem. State the possible contributing factors and how they might lead to the problem. Which means all factors in which you think they are contributing to a problem, you have to list them. That's why we say list them first, then explain how each could lead to the problem. You might have seen several factors. Na ukawa umezilisti hizo factors ambazo unafikiri maybe zinasababisha lile tatizo. So you have to list them na ueleze kila factor, yani uwe na majibu labda ya kila factor ina contribute vipi kwenye lile tatizo kutokea. Then state effort done previously to solve the problem and the effects. When we say state effort done previously to solve the problem and the effects, and we say the second step after the problem statement, it's literature review. You cannot know, or you cannot have the clue of what happened previously if you're not going to review, to read previous research findings, articles, theories. So you have to start the effort done previously to solve the problem and the effects, measure taken and outcome of the measures. Okay, they did research and that was their findings. Which measures did they take? Nafikiri we are getting the point there in preparation of the statement of the problem. Mara ya kwanza, you've seen that when I was trying to explain this, I said for it to be concrete, and you have to review to make it sensible, to give it more sense. Let's see a selection of a research problem. At the outset of your research, make sure you have identified a worthwhile problem. When you go through, you'll identify a worthwhile problem which has not been previously answered. Since research is always about some problems, identification and selection of this problem is most crucial in designing a research proposal. We're gonna see what a research proposal is, because I can say briefly, a research proposal, it's the line or the road to whatever you're going to do, to give the full picture of what you want to acquire. So, according to Tuckman, 1994, although selecting the research problem is one of the most difficult steps in the research process, It is unfortunately the one for which the least guidance can be given. However, according to Tuckman 1994, a problem statement must have the following characteristics. Tuckman 1994 anatuambia a problem statement must have the following characteristics. It should ask about a relationship between two or more variables. It should ask about a relationship between two or more variables. It should be clearly and unambiguously stated. I think now when we say variable, two or more variable, and the relation of variables, I think we get the concept of what variables are. So I don't think it's time to be a problem anymore. So it should be clearly and unambiguously stated. It should be stated in question form. When we say tukisema inatakiwa iwe stated kwenye mfumo wa swali, swali inaweza ikawa explicit or implicit, but it should be stated in question form, or alternatively in the form of an implicit question, such as the purpose of this study was to determine whether. Are we getting it? When you do your study, when you say this is implicit, mfano wa presentation ya implicit question ni ile this study was to determine whether A is the causative of B, etc., etc. Also, it should be testable by empirical method, that it should be possible to collect data to answer the questions asked. It should be testable by empirical methods. That is, it should be possible to collect the data to answer questions. And what are these questions are we talking about? When you establish a research and you established a problem somewhere, or you wrote down a problem statement, there are questions that you have to ask yourself. That's why you have to research to get the answers of the questions in which you have been asking. Know why this problem is happening, So it should be testable by empirical method. That is, it should be possible to collect data to answer the questions asked. It should not represent a moral or ethical position. It should not represent a moral or ethical position. We are going to see this in details, the moral or ethical position. So, apart from this guideline provided by Tuckman 1994, it can also be useful if you ensure that the problem that you have identified is of some theoretical or practical significance. It can also be helpful if from the wide range of potential problems for study at the initial stage, you narrowed the range to problems that are relevant to your academic, professional interest and current level of research skills. Let's see an example of statement of the problem. Tuangalie mifano michache ya statement of the problem. Example, a problem can be stated in the form of an explicit or an implicit question, as we said. When we say explicit or implicit, we say the implicit ikasema the purpose of this study is to determine, the aim of this study is to determine, but explicitly in explanation. Let's see. Example, the study examined whether students taught by direct method achieved higher reading score than those taught by communicative approach. This is an what? An implicit question. Do you see? But when we go to explicitly, for example, it might be, what is the relationship between motivation and achievement? What is the relationship between motivation and achievement? That is an explicit form of statement of the problem. I think we get the concept of what a statement of the problem is. Let's see now what is hypothesis. As from the beginning, we said this is a prediction or an academic guess. So once you have identified and started a problem, the next step is to create thesis, putting it in a very simple way. Thesis is a wise or educated guess. Hypothesis is a wise or educated guess. So it is an assumed answer to the questions posed in research problem statement. So, mfano, ukija, what is the relationship between motivation and achievement? This is what your problem statement. But unaweza ukawa na tayari una ila academic guess. Your thesis might be positive, negative, or it might be neutral. For example, you might extract hypothesis out of this statement of problem by saying motivation and achievement are positively related, or motivation and achievement are negatively related, or there is no relation between motivation and achievement. These are the academic guess, and is what we call hypothesis. So let's see here. It is an assumed answer to the question posed in research problem statement. However, it is only an assumed answer or an expectation that is tested in the start later on. You must bear in mind that a hypothesis differs from an observation, which represents the outcome actually found. When we say you test this hypothesis later, or when you carry on your start, which means you have to know the relationship between two variables. You might have write an academic guess that achievement and motivation are positively related. So going into your start, you'll have to prove this thesis, this academic guess of yours. When you say they are positive related, then you should give answers why positive related. So, however, it is only an assumed answer or an expectation that is tested in the start later on. You must bear in mind that a hypothesis differs from an observation, which represent outcomes actually found. Let's see how to form hypothesis. Focusing on your research problem, you can create a hypothesis. Simply try to give direct answer to the question posed in the problem statement. For example, research. Let's see this question 1. What is the relationship between motivation and achievement? Hypothesis 1 might be motivation and the achievement are positively related. And we know the type of hypothesis out there. This is H1, which motivation and achievement are positively related. However, this is not the only possible guess you can make. You may assume that hypothesis B, motivation and achievement are negatively related. Or does hypothesis show some positive or negative relationship between the variable? As far as the question of structuring hypothesis is concerned, there can be various or varieties of ways. For instance, let's see this research question 2. Do students learn more from a directive or non-directive teacher? Do students learn more from directive or non-directive teacher? Hypothesis 2, which it's from question 2. Directive teacher give more effective instruction than non-directive teacher. It is also important here to introduce you to the null thesis. It is a small little creature who says, I represent no relationship between variable that you are studying. Example, there is no relationship between motivation and achievement. I hope we are getting the point out there. Let's see, where do hypotheses come from. Given a problem statement, are A and B related? A researcher can construct 3 possible hypotheses. Yes, as A increases, so does B. Or yes, as A increases, B decreases. Or no, A and B are unrelated. I think we're getting the point there. And this A, and B are variables. Are we getting? So just in the relationship or just on the relationship of between variables. So the number of possible theses may possibly increase as the number of variable increases. So the possible thesis or hypothesis may possibly increases as the number of variable increases. For example, A, B, and C. I get it. The guess or this academic guess may increase in number. This is an assessment. You may try it out there. Identify the independent and dependent variable in the following situation. A university teacher is interested in determining the best way to teach introductory technology course and ensure that a student have learned the material. Activity 2, formulate hypothesis for the following 2 situations. So this assessment, you try it at your own, kuangalia kama if you understood the subject. So you'll have to identify the independent and dependent variable in such a situation. And this activity 2, formulate hypothesis from the following 2 situations. What effect does viewing violence on television have on boys? What effects does viewing violence on television have on boys? Under situation 2, a sanitation department is nearby and the smell is coming from the same direction. The sanitation department does a series of steps to process the sewage and wastewater. Hypothesis: if dash, then dash. If you understand this concept, then it will be very easy for you to do this activity. You do it into your own and you just find answers. Come, okay, this comes or it doesn't come, this is the right answer or this is not the right answer. If you understand the variables, it's very simple to write down the hypothesis or to predict, to give this academic guess if you identify the variables and their relationship. I think this is our session 8. Going to our session 9, it will be analysis and statement of the problem, which we are going to see, but I'm trying my level best to explain this to you. Swahili is not a simple language, but I've tried anyway. See you in lesson 9. Thank you.